Hey, New Year. How'd everyone spend the turn on the calendar? Hope it was good. You know, there was an objectively right way to spend it. Watching my end of year podcast? Don't worry, it's not too late for you. If you haven't watched it, go watch it now. Or maybe stay and watch this through. Because I have a surprising amount to say about this guy. On the wait for the final wave of Legacy United, the last little trickles of the previous made it to the UK, quite late. And I'll admit, seeing everyone else get theirs and hearing kinda rough things about the figures, I was a little apprehensive. I did consider cancelling these, but I stuck to my guns, got my hands on, and I don't know if it was just low expectations, but all three of these guys are really fun. So I suppose let's start off with the one that I was looking forward to the most, Legacy United Quake, who as far as I can tell is pretty maligned by collectors, but I really don't get it. I can't hate this thing. I don't know if it's just nostalgia of having the character because I played him a lot in Fall of Cybertron, or just my own biases when it comes to colour and design, but I love this and I want to talk about it. The sculpted detail and proportions on this guy are absolutely fantastic, in my eyes at least. Broadly looking at him, he's got a very heroic silhouette. The big shins, the broad shoulders, slight taper to the waist, it's all very aesthetically pleasing. But then you take a closer look and you get all of these different ridges and panels and layers. He looks armoured up like a tank. Honestly, I love the way that the chest piece is layered. I know that people have critiqued this, saying that it looks like he's got saggy but I don't see it. I more see like a military uniform with a collared shirt. This figure looks more soldier-like than any other that I can think of. All the details are really crisp, the treads on the shins, the basic surface detailing across the thighs and torso, the simplistic but tapered and shapely arms, and that head. It is just absolute sheer perfection. I really can't think of many head sculpts quite this detailed that pull it off quite this well. Now, I won't say the look is absolutely perfect. There are a couple of little issues here. He's got a little bit of hollowness, particularly from behind, the backs of the arms, the backs of the legs. They're not the prettiest looking. Personally, I don't mind it too much because all the spaces where it's particularly bad have dark colours, so it kind of blanks it out. But if you do look closely, it looks a little rough. Also, the tank turret comes as a separate piece out of the box, and without it, the back looks way too flat. But once you plug it on, it does fill out just enough. Now, one issue that people have with this guy that I can kinda get behind are the colours. Not so much the colours that they've chosen, I think they're absolutely perfect, but the colour placement. The G1 figure was a lot more consistent in where it chose to place those colours. The arms were completely grey, the torso was completely blue, and I think that would have looked pretty good here, I won't lie. I believe the main reason why this isn't the case on this guy is because he's a Skullgrin retool, so they had to work with where the sprues were for the colours on each piece. And because he's a larger deluxe, they didn't really have the budget to go back and paint a lot of the details. But I'll admit, I do quite like the colour placement on this guy. It's pretty dynamic. There are things I would change if I could. I would prefer if the torso block was completely blue, but that's the only change I would personally make. The little aesthetic changes they've made, like the pops of red on the shoulders, the mostly grey shins, the elbow deep black, it all works really well in my eyes. I know that such a sporadic colour scheme isn't going to be for everyone, but in my eyes this works, and the only thing that doesn't is that red midriff. If that was blue, he'd be golden. And speaking of golden, that face, I love the paint they chose for it, works really well in my books. Now, as for accessories, he comes with the previously mentioned tank turret. There's not really a place where he can hold it by, it's more just a case of, this was a symptom of the retooling. You can just fold it up, plug it on the back and leave it there. But if you want to give him something to hold, he does come with his two target masters. Purple one is Tip Top, the blue one is Heater. They work for what they are, I suppose, but the Siege Battle Masters did it better. Nothing against these, they're sculpted pretty well, but they are just pack-ins with a deluxe, so they don't have any posability, and all they do is flip out to become the guns. And when you do that, they're pretty gappy. They work okay, but they're nothing to write home about. I do prefer the way Tip Top looks in his hands though. Now, posing wise, Quake is a pretty mixed bag. There's a couple of little issues, but he's mostly really good. The head is on a ball joint, but because of lack of clearance, it can only swivel. The shoulders move out standardly and go all the way around. He's got some tiny backwards butterflies. He's got bicep swivels, really deep elbow bends, a waist swivel. The hips go out standardly and forward and back pretty far. He has thigh swivels, slightly deeper than normal knees, and some okay ankle pivots. Aside from a couple of things like the lack of wiggle room at the head or the lack of wrists, this posing is really good. He's got a lot of good ranges, the nice big shins and feet give him a really solid base to stand on, and with good dynamic proportions like these, he's got a lot of freedom in the poses you can get him in. Unfortunately, my copy has really good tolerances across the board. The only things I can say are a little less than satisfying are the shoulders going forward and backwards, everything else perfect. Which is apparently pretty uncommon as far as I know about this figure. As far as I know, quite a few people have issues with the arms and knees not being overly tight. I'm glad that mine's avoided this, but I'd be wary of this figure if that is a common occurrence. The other QC issue on this guy is apparently the wrists like to pop out. So far, mine have not. They aren't pinned so I could see it happening, but I think I've just had pretty good luck on the QC. Now, the transformation on this figure is actually a lot of fun. It's surprisingly complex for a deluxe. The torso does this whole thing where it kind of flips itself around and then inside out a little bit. I like that little shift of the shoulders, although I am wary of sliding joints like that holding up over time. And the way the shins expand out into the treads is really satisfying, although it is a little bit hard to get plugged together right at the end. And the tank mode is... it's dumb as f***. Now, I'll grant it this, it does have a slight resemblance to the G1 Quake toy, at least with the way the treads sit. And honestly, those treads, they're really good. They've got a lot of detail, they're very consistent all the way around. They don't have any rolling wheels, which is a shame, but I don't really mind that. But unfortunately, the further up you go on the tank, the worse it gets. Now, I am going to play devil's advocate, remind you all that Skullgrin's vehicle mode looked like this. This does not resemble this. However, that middle section of the tank is not very good at all. It really is just a mass of robot parts that have been kind of mushed down so it's flat. And that tank turret, that's pretty laughable to be honest. Like, yeah, it's got some good details on it, and the barrel is pretty good, but it's so small and so flat, it's a bit of a piss take. But you know what? I don't hate this mode. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's good, but I don't hate it. Like, the turret has some functionality, not much, but some. It holds together pretty solidly, which is more than I can say for most retooled vehicle modes. And overall, it doesn't bring my opinion of the figure down. If this vehicle mode spoils the figure for you, I totally get it. But me personally, I still really like this thing. I'm not gonna say, go out and buy this now. The figure isn't that good. But I would recommend it. Even if you've already got Skullgrin, it's different enough in my books. Ain't that right, Chambo?
And you would be absolutely correct, MrLoubat. You see, Quake's head is quite nice, so let's remove that and replace it with a completely new one. This one comes with a lovely size, it's huge, comes with a nice material, rubber of all things, and the horns stay on spiffingly. They don't. I know. Skullgrin came out first and Quake's just a retool. But come on, that head is hilarious in comparison with the rest of the mold. Body here is practically the same as Quake's, just with a few differences. The shoulders, waist, and knees have some spikes on them. The shoulders are rounder and the waist has a skull on it. Back of the legs are completely different because the alt mode is different. Apart from that, they've also changed the colors. Speaking of colors, instead of a bright purple, average red, black, and gunmetal grey, we now see a lot of white, dark grey, and maroon. I think that's what that colour is. White colours here are mainly on the parts where the bone material would be, like the head, waist, and shoulder pads. Dark grey is on the forearms, lower legs, there's also some on the torso, and just on the neck of the head mould. The torso, arms, and legs are also being joined by that maroon colour. The head, being quite large, is also pretty bland in terms of colour. The only other colour you see on this head mold is pink, and that's for the eyes. Apart from colour, the detailing on the skull itself is really nice. Skullgrin also comes with some nice accessories. They come with 2 swords, a back piece that has Skullgrin's tail, and 2 guns. Paint on the swords and guns are quite nice, matching the colours on Skullgrin. Their back piece can either hold both swords, both guns, or one of both. The tail can move up and down, and that's pretty much it. The articulation on this guy is around the same as Quake, yet again with a couple of differences. With the back piece off, the head can move left and right, tilting the head up slightly can allow it to go a full 360 degrees. And the front horns can both move inwards and outwards, and the back horns can move up and down, both for the transformation. Actually transforming this guy is the same as Quake, just with some slight differences. Instead of the legs doing what Batty just did, the legs do this. Instead of 1 tank cannon, there's now 2 gun cannons. Yeah, I'm still very confused on this alt mode till this day. I usually just keep them in robot mode. Now, from what I understand, this guy is supposed to be a pretender, and it's a fun change to make the shell the robot mode, and just make him a classic style transformer, much like Bludgeon, Bomb Burst, and a handful of others. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about Skullgrin. Wait, have you guys taken your daily depression and coffee yet? No? No special sticker for you then.
Yeah, looking at that, I definitely prefer Quake. This is a really solid pickup if you're looking for just a generic looking Decepticon, or more specifically a Quake, if you want something to go with Needle Nose, anything of the sort. Would I say that this is a better figure than Titan's Return Quake? Probably not, that's Titan's Return Quake. But is it good? Hell yeah. And if you agree with me, leave a like. If not, then tell me why in the comments. And be sure to subscribe, I've got some big things in the works. Right now though, half the food from Christmas is still in the fridge, and I'm gonna go gorge myself on half a block of cheese.